Hi everybody, I'm Kevin Calabrese. I actually teach part-time at Gold Peak, and I have tuned a lot of skis in my life. My background, just to be quick, I used to work for Rossignol, and I was in race service at Rossignol, and worked over in France for them. I also used to run Snowwell here, was general manager of Bevel retail in Snowwell. Plus I've done a lot of magazine tests, ski tests, things like that. My son was an elite ski club racer, ski Bevel racer, so I've tuned a lot of skis in my day, and made a lot of mistakes too. So through trial and error, I've come up with I think what is a good solution. One of the things when I went to work for Rossignol, I thought I knew how to tune skis, and they told me forget everything you know, and you will do it our way. And their way was actually quite good. There isn't a lot of artistic freedom in tuning skis. There's pretty much a right way and a wrong way, and not much in between. A lot of the race service guys, they really pretty much do things the same way, and they've done things the same way for many, many, many years. For us, what does that mean for us? Well, the important thing for us is we always need to be on good equipment, okay? And if the equipment is not tuned, it's not going to perform well. It could actually even be dangerous. I mean, how many times have you guys been out early season and it's a soft spot and all of a sudden you hit that slick spot and the ski breaks away? I mean, that's dangerous. You could, backs, knees, everything. So tuning is important, and I actually kind of probably stone my skis almost every day, and I wax them about every second or third day, and keep a file tuned, keep them sharp. I mean, it just is so much better, and it's such a better experience. And doing it yourself, obviously there's times when you have to take it to a shop to get it ground or something, we'll go in that. But getting the tuning yourself or touching it up yourself really makes a big difference. And also too is the way you tune your ski, you get used to the way you tune your ski. Skiing style will adapt around how you do your skis and how you tune your ski, and you really get used to your own work. And if you always have consistency, so you're always tuning your skis the same way, you're going out on them, they perform the same way, it's going to be a lot better experience for everybody. Okay. Real quick, ski construction. So that's an edge, sidewall, base. Okay. So skis, bases are made out of polyethylene. And most of the skis today have what's called a sintered base versus an extruded base. Sintered bases they're made under high pressure, so there's a lot of molecules per, say, square millimeter of material. So a sintered base, instead of being extruded, it's carved out of a solid block of polyethylene. So you get a much more dense base, you get a much more, better gliding ski, it's more durable. You guys remember the old extruded base skis, and they turn white and they turn furry and all that? The sintered bases now are used pretty much on everything. A lot of bases do put graphite in, black bases hence, and what graphite is elementally negative. It repels water, glides faster, and I'll get into that when I get into waxing. Okay. Sidewalls, as you see, do you guys remember cap skis? Cap skis came out and they thought they would revolutionize the industry. Well, they didn't work. Solomon actually came out with cap race skis, but they had to make the skis so torsionally stiff to compensate for the cap that they ended up going to traditional design skis as well.
What's the difference?
What's that?
Between sidewalls and cap, what's the difference?
Well, with a sidewall, these are two individual pieces that are put in there and they support the edge. A cap was one piece that was molded around and would go from edge to edge.
A piece of plastic?
Plastic, ABS plastic.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So sidewalls, say this ski, the most high performance skis are made of a material called phenolic. Okay, and phenolic basically is resin and sawdust, lack of a better term. But the beauty of it is, it's been used probably for 60 years in ski sidewalls. It's the perfect material, it's got the right engineering specs. Lateral deflection is something that the sidewall helps the ski do, and it has the right for that. Sidewalls also, you can look at them like pillars holding up the ski. They support the edge. You've got this coming straight down on the edge. You get so much more support to the edge and a lot more power to the edge. So sidewalls are important. We also, when you get a new ski, obviously you're going to pull the sidewall back. We'll get into that later. So that's what sidewalls do. Then you have a vertically laminated wood core. That's my vertically laminated wood core. not real good. But what that is basically the laminates in the wood go vertical like that. And by mixing several different pieces of wood or types of wood vertically, you get a lot more consistent product. Obviously wood has variations from tree to tree or board to board, but by vertically laminating it, you get a much more consistent product and it's durable. Pretty much every high performance ski right now is made this way. Okay, it's something that's been around forever. It works. And there's obviously layers of metal and fiberglass in here as well to give the ski performance. Metal usually gives the ski more torsional rigidity, and it gives the ski a lot. It kind of dampens down the flex of it as well. Fiberglass is in a ski. There's Kevlar, not so much anymore, but generally fiberglass, metal, vertically laminated wood core, like most skis are done. There's also torsion box skis, which aren't so used, or they aren't used very much anymore. Torsion box skis is where you had wrap of glass around the core. VR17 Dynamique for some of your old people. K2 used it for some time. Actually, at Rosignol when I was there, we had some torsion box skis, but they've pretty much all gone to vertically laminated wood cores now. Okay. So when you get a new ski, generally the manufacturers are doing a much better job now getting the skis prepped out of the box. Some skis, like my Nordic is there. I actually was able to ski those literally right out of the box, and they skied fine. But that's not always the case, even with Nordic or with any ski. You're sometimes going to have a bad ski. And what happens is when they make skis are made of fiberglass and epoxy. And when they put the epoxy in the epoxy is still curing when it's in the ski. And as it cures, the ski is going to bend, it's going to twist, it's going to warp, all kinds of things are going to happen. And this could happen after they stone grind the ski or after they prep the ski at the factory. So it's always a good idea to look at your ski and see what it needs and see what type of work you need to do on it. I use a True Bar, and some of you guys probably have them. And the True Bars are kind of cool because what you can do with the True Bar, you can set it up here. You can look and see if the base is flat. You can actually look and see too if there's a little. With a light, if the light is right, you can look and see, you can measure the edge bevel as well and see, if there is a bevel on the edge. So the True Bar is a good thing to buy and look and get comfortable with it. It takes a while to get used to the True Bar and look at it and see what you're looking for. But once you do, you can really see, what the ski is all about. If it's base high, if it's edge high, this will tell all. Okay, and it's a good thing when you get a new ski to do that. I generally, in the old days, you used to flat file your skis to try to get them good. Flat filing is not really done anymore. It's, usually when you flat file, you're taking a file and going like this down the ski. Well, most people hold the file and they're bending it a little bit, so you're going to put too much bevel on a ski and it's not really a precise way to do it. They also used to take metal scrapers in the old days, if it was base high, and sharpen the scraper, put a burr on it, and try to scrape down the base. Now the best way is if you get a new ski and it is base high or it's edge high, it's best to take it to a good shop and get it stone ground and get it all set up. There's some good shops in Vail. I personally like Gorsuch down at Eagle Vale. They've got a really nice setup, and they've got Jonathan, who is actually was Michaela's first technician. So he's an ex-Atomic race service guy, and they do a really good job, and they actually give a good price to Vail instructors too. Any questions so far? Okay. Setup on skis. You all hear about base bevel, side bevel, and that. All right. Base bevel is if you have a ski, you have your edge here. What we're going to do is that edge will be at a slight angle, and I've exaggerated to the base. So you're going to have an angle, you're going to have an angle of about 1 or 2 degrees depending on how you set your ski up on your side edge. Okay, so the side edge will look like this, and there's the sidewall on the ski, so you're going to have an angle like that, and your base bevel is going to be the edge is sort of recessed or slightly below the base of the ski. That is, generally put at 1 degree. Now, a lot of people can say, well, I like this or I like that. Generally, for most skis, we're doing a 2 degree side and a 1 degree base bevel. Okay? What base bevel does is because the edge is recessed a bit or at an angle, a slight angle to the base, it allows the ski to come outside the body before it grabs. if you ever been on a ski that's feeling really grabby, you can't get it outside the body, it kind of wants to go straight, that's usually a ski that's got a flat base. Some people like to say that, oh, well, I like my skis flat, so they hook up. Not a thing, okay? 1 degree base bevel is, a good way to go. Some race skis do use a little bit more, like in downhill, they may use a 1.5 base bevel, but for us and our purposes, the 1 degree is pretty much perfect. Slalom skis on a World Cup, they're using a 0.5 degree base bevel because they're doing a little different thing, they're hooking up that ski faster. And a GS ski is usually a 0.75, but for most of our applications, the 1 degree is good. Now side bevel, by putting a side bevel in, or the edge is going like this, what that does is it gives you a sharper edge and more of a grip, okay? Generally, 2 degree is, the accepted way to go. I mean, you can go all the way up to 4 degree. Some of the World Cup slalom skis are doing 4 degree, but the problem with the more side edge bevel you have, the faster that ski gets developed. So 2 degree is pretty much the accepted standard. Everybody's got their own preference, but generally everyone's preference usually is a 2 on the side and 1 on the bottom. You can sit there and get lost in the minutia of a 1.75 or a 0.75, but these are the 2 best. And when you get your skis tuned at a good shop, they're probably going to do that. Any questions so far? Okay. Edge high, base high skis, we talked about that. A lot of them come from the factory. Or the very fact of skiing on your skis and skiing on hard snow, you sometimes will get skis that are base high because you're really wearing off a lot of the edge. And that's a case where you do need a ski stone ground. Okay. Tuning the ski. Usually when you go to a good shop, the skis come out, they're pretty much ready to ski out of the, right from the shop. There's really not much you have to do to them, at least if it was a good tune. I do like to, do my own edges, and in between taking the ski to the shop, I will tune my own skis. And obviously here's some of the tools that you need. You don't need all of these, but I have them because I'm a little crazy. I like tools. But with files, you can go down to Home Depot and buy a file, but it's not going to be very good. These chrome files, a lot of companies make them. A chromium file is probably the best. I like the Swix ones. They're actually not made by Swix, they're made in Switzerland. But there's a Blue Dens file, it's an Austrian one, that's a chrome one. There's an Ice Cut, which is Swiss. There's these Swix files that come from Switzerland as well. And they're a chromium file, which they last a lot longer. Some of these files are several years old, and the chromium ones will last a long time. Files do come in different grits too. They're called TPI, or teeth per inch. And some of your more aggressive files are like 12 to 13 teeth per inch. Some of your less aggressive or finer files are 17 teeth per inch. So generally I like to have maybe like the 14 or 15 teeth per inch and a 17 teeth per inch file. I actually use 3 different files when I do a ski. So I will start with this file here is called a bastard file. Sorry about the name, that's what they call it. Okay, this is about a 12 teeth per inch, and if you can see it, I'll pass it around. It's got a lot of grit to it, okay? And this is what I start with. But you guys also too is, how many of you guys are registered for expert voice? Swix has a great deal on it. You can get everything you need from either Swix or Toco on expert voice, and it's like a 40% discount. So I also, one of the biggest kind of things that that they've come out with are good file guides, and these file guides, they're all by degrees. And so this is doing your side, for your side edge. This is an 87. It's a 3 degree. I've got a 2 degree right here. I generally use the 2 degree. And what you want to do with a file, files always go to about a 45 degree angle because that's the way the teeth are. And you can actually use either side of the file, but you always have to have this part in the front, or else it's not doing anything. And these clamps like this, a little spring clamp, you put it on like this, and you have it on the file guide like this, so you've got a little bit of the cutting edge here. And when you bring it down the ski, nice long strokes. And if you see the stuff coming off the ski, and you can also look at the edge and see where the edge gets shiny, and that's where you're cutting into the edge. And when you see the edge go shiny all the way to that side,
You
know
guys
that
can
you've
get
got
closer
full
if
edge.
you want.
You guys can get closer.
Yeah, I mean, gather round. Why don't
Yes.
you guys get nice and close and see what's going on? In fact, I'm gonna move up a little
Okay,
bit.
watch this. So you go. See that? See those filings come off? And that's really getting that side edge. And this has already been pre-done with a 2 degree, so you know, I'm not having to cut it with a sidewall. But if you feel that just after a couple, and then I like to go with what's called a second cut file. Put on like this, kind of a little angle, like this, and you'll feel it. You can actually, you can move it a little bit if you want. You'll feel where
So
it
it
cuts.
doesn't matter if that is at an angle, that file?
It has to be at somewhat of an angle to cut.
Yeah.
You know, anywhere around 45 degrees, 35 degrees. But if it's like this, or this, or this, it's still going to cut. Because the teeth, if you see, the teeth are cutting
And this is
backwards.
what determines that it's
Yes, yeah.
Sharpen
That's
the
been milled
fingers.
into here. So that's milled into there. So the file goes here. Yes, because this is the part that's milled. If you see, this has been milled to be 2 degrees.
Okay. So 2 degrees vis-a-vis the side, that other side.
Pardon me?
What's the 2 degrees, where's the 2 degrees measured?
2 degrees measured here.
It's there, okay, yeah, got it.
Yeah. So this is what's called a second cut file, probably about 15 teeth per inch. And so this is the second one. So this still cuts, but it starts to get rid of a lot of the grit and a lot of the striations that the other file leaves. The other file takes off metal, gets it down to the shape. This starts to smooth the metal, okay, on the edge. This one, see, and you can see, you always do nice long strokes like this, always bases away from you. Never, ever, ever have the base this way and try to do it. Always bases away. And I actually
Like putting pressure against the base in order to keep it flat?
pressure against the base and pressure
And on
down.
top.
So you're pushing here and pushing there.
Okay.
Also, I like to divide the ski up in thirds. Okay, so you're always working on thirds of the ski. So 1/3, 1/3, 1/3. And I always like to work in threes. I always work in threes where I'm doing 3 passes. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, and then I do 1, 2, 3, then 1, 2, 3. And then you do 1 long pass to blend. Okay, so that blends it in. So divide the ski into thirds, do 3 passes, then 1 pass to blend.
Why do you divide it into thirds? Because you can be more consistent?
Yes.
For over a shorter period, shorter
Yes.
distance?
And then that way, then you blend it with 1. And then the next thing I go to is after I use the bastard file, then I use the second cut, then I go to a fine file.
So can you just back up for 1 second?
Yeah.
What you're working on right now is the
Side edge.
the
Side
edge
edge.
bevel
So, well, I'm also sharpening the edge.
at the same time.
Yes.
So this is basically what you're maybe changing is the angle of edge going
Exactly.
that way.
Like that.
Okay.
And what you do in the beginning when you set up a new ski is, and I'm not going to do it because these skis have already been set, but this is what's called a sidewall plate. And you see this little material in the sidewall there?
The white?
Yeah, but see how it goes out above the edge? You want to plane that off. You want to plane that material
Where
off.
is it out above the edge?
See right there? Right there?
The edge feels higher than that.
Well, this sticks out though. I mean, this sticks out with the edge. I'm sorry.
Okay,
Yeah, out
so
from the
you're
rest of the
taking that
sidewall.
down?
Right, so you're taking this down.
What's the purpose of that?
See that?
I see.
Otherwise you can't bevel the
Exactly,
edge.
exactly. Now, the other way to do it, there is another way to do this. This is called a Panzer File. Not for the unexperienced. This can do a lot. It can do a lot of good and it can do a lot of damage. But this thing, like if you've got a lot of skis to do, or you want to get the shape to the ski or the 2 degree quick, this Panzer will do it really quick. And the Panzer File, I mean, look at what comes off. Okay, and that's when you have a lot of skis who do a race service when you're doing initial setup on the ski.
That's you're taking it off the edge.
Right, same thing, side edge. Okay, and that gets the 2 degree in really fast, but then,
This part here, this edge on top is really not something that you care about. It's just this bottom.
right, but what you're doing is you're cutting this back with this.
Yeah.
You're cutting that back so that
So that you can get
Right.
an angle on it. I got it.
Right.
Okay.
Then I always touch up the ski, or finish the ski with a fine cut file. So this is
17?
this is about a 17 teeth per inch, and it's a 6-inch file. And it's one thing to get the ski edges sharp, but it's another thing to get them smooth. And what you really want to do is get as smooth of edge as possible, because that ski is going to perform much better on the snow. It's going to come into that arc. It's going to be real smooth. And give a nice supple feel. So then, same thing. And you'll see very little comes off of this. 3 passes, 3 passes. And then 1 to blend. Okay. So if you feel it now, it feels pretty sharp, but it's kind of misleading, because what's happening is as you move your hand over it, there's a little burr that curls over to the base because you've been taking that metal off. So it kind of pulls at your hand and pulls at your fingernail.
Yeah.
You're thinking, wow, I got the ski sharp. Well, it's sharp, but it's also got a little burr. So what you want to do, first off, is we stone the skis, and we use diamond stones. And you start out with a couple different grits of diamond stones. And so you're doing the same thing here, where you're taking the diamond stone and you're polishing the ski like that. So that really gets rid of a lot of striations and really starts to finely polish the edge.
That's you're applying in a different angle.
No, same. It's all the
It's
same.
okay.
Same as the side edge. And then you'll finish it off with some ceramic stones. And these are ceramic. And it doesn't feel like these are doing anything, but they really do a good job at polishing the edge and getting the edge real smooth. And then what I do is after I've polished it, then I always take, say, a 600 grit diamond stone, and I'm doing the base like this, the base like that. That way you're getting rid of that burr.
So up until now, you haven't done the
Right.
base.
I did the base after. Now, I'm going to backtrack here a second and show you some things on the base, but right now I'm showing you with the side edge, what we're doing the side edge. Okay?
Yeah.
And for most times sharpening your ski, you're just doing the side edge. Okay? Because that's where your sharpness comes from. But then you always finish it with a polishing of the base.
And that's what we would do to deburr.
Right. And get that
in
burn
general.
on. Right. Now, generally, your skis come out of the machine and your base bevel is in, but you have a tool like this. This is a base beveler, and they do a reasonably good job. I still think the machine ones are done better, but this, you set it at your desired base bevel, and then you move it down the ski like that, and that cuts away that base edge to give you that that 1 degree or 2 degree or whatever, at 1.5 or whatever you want. Okay. But generally, when you get your skis tuned, this edge is done, the angle is there, the bevel is there, the base bevel is there.
So it's rounded out like that.
Right.
With the bevel.
There's a little bit, like, here's your base bevel,
Mhm.
so it'd be, obviously not that big, like 1 degree like that, and then this
It's
edge,
not concave. It's the opposite.
right,
Right.
yeah, it goes it goes that way, back.
And how much of it goes that way? From what point to what point?
Well, the whole edge should be going that way. Okay. So everyone clear on that? Does anyone want to come up and try it? Does anyone try it? These are my skis,
Can I look at the bevel, the base bevel tool guide?
Sure, I'll be happy to try.
Oh, Mark,
Yeah.
up there.
Is there?
So you do one side at a time.
Do you sign
Yeah.
a
Single
liability
close.
waiver?
You do have to do one side. What's that?
Do you sign any liability waiver?
So you move it in and out to
Yeah.
change the angle.
Well, yeah, you move this in and out. And there's several good ones. Dave, what base beveler do you use?
You know, I always get it one in,
But as far as a tool?
I have a Honeycomb that you can set it exactly. You know, I used to have the plastic sleeves you can put on the
Yeah.
file, but when it sits on the ski, that you can adjust it.
Yeah.
more
Generally, once you set the base bevel, you're not gonna have to mess with it unless you get the ski reground and they don't put a 1 degree in it, so it's gonna be material. The thing you're gonna be doing mostly is side filing and polishing your skis.
Once the base is set, I never,
Right.
except for the gird, I really don't touch it.
Yeah.
Which file do you use to do that?
I use a bastard,
So very aggressive.
yes.
But you can also,
You can use any file, I just,
if it's been done and the ski's not acting quite right, you can come down just with the diamond stone in it.
exactly.
Because sometimes it just needs touch.
So which one you do first, base
Yeah.
bevel or side bevel?
Generally I do base bevel first, but you
Right.
don't have to do base bevel. Base bevel you're only doing very rarely.
Rarely.
Yes, okay. You know, when you're setting up a new ski, or the ski's not skiing right, or you put the true bar on it and you feel that it's flat. So, and then once you get the ski set, as far as the base or the shape to it, then you're going and you're doing,
So base bevel rarely change.
right,
So when you sharpen it, you do the side.
right.
Thank you.
It's funny, there were some old timers at Rosignol that literally could take a file and put a 1 degree in and it would be perfect. But these guys were, you know, some of the best technicians in the world. There was a guy, Jean-Pierre Asimos, and he was a technician for Erica Hess and then Bernie Schneider, and he was highly regarded as probably the best ski technician of all time. He had the most wins, and the guy was unbelievable. I mean, how consistent he was, and he literally could take this file and put a 1 degree in, and it would be a 1 degree. He was came out of woodworking, which a lot of the good technicians do. Because but so we do our side edge, okay, and then I like to take and polish this to get rid of the burr on the base edge, and I use a 600 grit. The best stones are a brand called Moonflex. If you can find Moonflex stones, they're absolutely the best diamond stones. And then these ceramic stones come from a place in Golden, Spyderco. They make knives, and you see when you're going on, you know, the shortcut to Boulder. You see their offices, and you can go in there and buy it. These are absolutely some of the best ceramic stones you can buy because they're made for sharpening knives, but they do a good job on skis. This one is coarser, this one is finer. I'll pass them around. I don't feel like they do much, but they do polish the ski. And one of the things that I know Dave does, and some people do, is you soak them in water. And you keep them soaked in water, and that kind of emulsion that it makes when it does your ski really will get that smooth. And one of the things they discovered is, especially for Ptex skiers, having those highly polished edges makes the ski a lot more supple in and out of the turn, gives it better grip, and it's just a general better feel. And it's amazing how you see some of these race skis. I mean, they almost like make the edges like mirrors. They get them that polished.
And so you say you do this every how often?
I actually will touch my skis, touch them up, I'll feel them, and touch them up every time I ski. But as far as sharpening them, it all depends on snow conditions. Lately, much more, you know, if it's sharp. You know, a ski can go dull in literally less than a day of skiing if it's harder snow. And you know, I'll give a feel. And like a lot of people do this, or they do this with their fingernail. Actually, you're more sensitive on doing it with that side of your hand. And that's why you know, it's more tactile, so you can feel really, you know, if the ski's good. But you know, you're going to get little burrs and things, and some of the things you can do, if you get little burrs or rock dents, you can actually just take that space and go this way and that way, and you can work it out and get it done. Yeah. So, tip and tail double. All right. If you leave your tips and tails sharp on the ski, A, it's dangerous, and B, the ski's not going to ski very well. So there's many theories on how to dull the tip and tail of the ski. The accepted one that we had learned in racing, instead of using, in the old days, I mean, people used to literally take the file and go sideways like that and dull the ski. Or they would take a gummy stone, a rubber stone, and do that. The accepted way, or at least in race service, what we were taught, was you use something called Scotch-Brite. Scotch-Brite's amazing stuff, okay? It does a lot for skis, you can use it in a lot of ways. But what you would do is you would take, depending on the ski, the event or whatever, you take, say, this space here, okay? Take that distance right there, and you would go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Then you would cut that distance in half and go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Then you would cut that distance in half and go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Then 1 to blend. And what that does is that keeps it a little more rounder, a little more dull up here, and it gradually brings the ski into that sharp edge. So when you roll a ski on edge, it gradually goes in. It goes in nice and smooth. It's not hooky or rough or anything like that. A lot of people say, well, yeah.
So you use the Scotch-Brite only on the tip?
Yes.
Not in the middle?
No, there's other things you use Scotch-Brite for, but and I'll get to that in a second. So, and generally in the tail, I don't usually do much on the tail of my ski. You know, sometimes I'll take it, but generally, I don't really feel that, you know, tails hook up or the tail is hooky or anything like that. So generally the front is more important. If you want to do the tail of the ski, you know, you want this part here because that's what grabs and holds the ski to reverse flex. So you do the area behind the widest point of the ski. Does that make sense to everybody? But while you're doing this progression like I did, is you're really getting a gradual dulling of the ski. You're still keeping it square, but you're taking the harshness out of it. And you know, if you round the edge, that really actually creates a real problem as well. So you really want the edge square, but take the sharpness out of it and have it gradually go to sharp as it gets back here. Any questions?
You keep it square by using that
Scotch-Brite, yeah.
Scotch-Brite.
Scotch-Brite is great stuff. I mean, it's got a lot of uses in the ski.
You're just going sort of at an angle to
What
the
you do
edge.
is you want your tips of your fingers to hold it like this, so you're gently pressing against. And like I said, you do first 5. You know, you take, say, this distance, you do 5 the whole way, then cut that in half, go another 5, then cut that in half and go another 5, then blend it in.
How do you determine how much to do to begin with? Like what section of it? Or is it
You know,
objective?
a lot of people have their own preference. I always like to do, like, say, to the bottom of the N in Nordica. You know, so about that far down. But it's all different. But if you know, do, say, something like this, maybe 7 inches, 6 inches, 7 inches, 8 inches from the tip of the ski, you know, to just back from the contact point, and that's probably going to do. Does anyone else have any theories on what they like to do for dulling?
I was gonna
Some
say,
people don't like to detune tips and tails. You said it could be even dangerous.
It is dangerous because it'll hook up. You know, when it comes on edge, it instantly grabs, and even racers, they want that to be a nice subtle grab because they're putting that ski out there, and it can get very hooky if you don't dull it. Or not dull it, or at least detune it. Let's put it that way. So I know people have told me, well, why do you do that? And I said, well, that's what I was taught. That's what the World Cup guys wanted, and that I think is safer, and the skis ski better that way. Especially in our snow. Our snow is softer. We're not on very hard snow out here, and so that definitely makes the skis ski a lot more versatile, and a lot smoother. Okay. Next thing is getting ready to wax. Okay. So, do you remember we talked about bases being sintered materials? Okay, so the base actually, if you get a ski stone ground, what stone grinding does, it's a stone wheel, and they pass a diamond across it, and it puts a pattern or grooves in the stone. And what that does is, if this is the base of the ski, you're going to have, you know, it could be like this, it could be like this, but it'll put a pattern in the ski. And if you look at this ski right here, the reason why I brought this over, it's got a really nice pattern in it. And why a pattern? If you look at the base, hold it up to the light, and look at the base of the ski, look at the pattern. So the way skis glide, a way they overcome friction is they create an optimal layer of water between the snow and the base of the ski. Okay. And it's called the PMP, or pressure melting point, which when you apply pressure to something, regardless of temperature, it's going to melt. So when you stand on your skis, okay, you're creating that body, you're creating that layer of water. Now there's an optimal layer of water that you want to have, all right? And there's a certain amount to glide. You get too much water on a warm day, and there's friction, you get a lot of that suction. On a cold day, the snow is much more coarse and aggressive, so you want to create water, you want to create friction. And so what the structure does, okay, the structure will allow the water to build up, but then evacuate that water when it comes too much. And so depending on temperature, you have more structure or less structure in the ski. Generally, if they put a good structure in a ski, this is a fairly fine one, this is going to glide most of the time. Okay, but what I'm telling you is, what they're doing on the board.
Is that a different one from those?
This is a finer structure, and generally for most of what we're doing, the finer structures work better. That is that's out of the Nordica factory, and that actually is a fairly aggressive structure on a for warmer.
What does that mean?
Warmer days.
Aggressive?
Deeper, more. The pattern is deeper, and the pattern is
So it evacuates more?
water. Yes. Okay. I don't know how those are as far as flat. They haven't been tuned for a while, so my bad.
Do you know Whiskey Nordica? Any reason for that?
They take care of it.
Or they do?
And I like this skis. So base material. Softer. We talked about polyethylene, and that's what the bases are made out of. In the molecular structure of polyethylene, the molecules look like this in your skis, and here's the flip. So you've got all these little molecules of polyethylene, and what you want to do is get the wax to kind of go in between them. Okay, so the wax gets down and gets into the base. That's what protects your skis and makes them glide fast. So waxes will be very hard on cold waxes will be very hard because you create friction. You want to lessen the effect of the abrasion of snow crystals, and you want to create that optimal layer of water on a cold day. And then waxes for warm days will be softer because there you want to repel the water, and you want to lessen that suction. Does that make sense to everybody?
So a harder wax creates more friction?
Yeah. Yes. Harder waxes as well, the way they make waxes softer or harder is they add more carbon atoms to waxes, and that makes more carbon atoms in the wax actually makes the wax harder. Less carbon atoms makes it softer.
There are some called liquid wax. Are they also work for warm days?
Yeah, they don't really work all that well. This is, but this is actually liquid paraffin, so it's a little bit different. And but liquid waxes, they're good literally for a couple runs, maybe.
Just a couple rounds?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. The other thing that happens is we get a lot of dirt on the bases of our skis, and that slows them down. So they came out with something several years ago called fluorocarbon. Fluorocarbon actually came from an Italian company, and what they found is fluorocarbons first came in Nordic skis, because if we don't wax our skis, we don't go very fast down the hill. But if you mess up the wax in a 50K Nordic race, you're feeling it for 50 kilometers. So fluorocarbon it's a material. It's actually in Teflon. It came out of boats. They actually would put it on hulls of boats, racing boats, to make it faster. But what they found with fluorocarbon, it's got more fluorine atoms in instead of hydrogen atoms. And so it repels dirt and repels all that grit, and it also repels water, so it lessens the suction. It's elementally negative, and so water's negative, it repels the water.
And that's what's being used?
On racing, yeah. It's very expensive, and actually is, they're trying to ban it because it's a toxic substance. And they were trying to develop a test so that they could catch people cheating, still using it, but they don't really have an instantaneous test for it yet. So it's still being used. You might have heard of like Sarah F from Swix, and it was like $100 for a little thing like this. Toco had something called WetJet, has something called WetJet, and you'll see them applying it before they race. Okay, and they'll put it on, and it's a surfactant, or it's on the surface, and usually it's a one-run deal. It stays on the ski, but what you want to do is you want to get it off the ski once you use it. So you have to do what's called hot scraping or brushing out the ski to get all the fluoro out of it after. Because the fluoro won't make the ski fast long term. It's the hydrocarbon waxes getting into the base that really, condition the base and make them faster. The hydrocarbon is an instantaneous thing, or fluorocarbon, excuse me. So you see these brushes here, and what you do is once you put that pattern in the ski, the structure, you really want to bring that pattern out, so you're brushing the ski and using a metal brush. And what that does is really pronounces the structure, cleans it out, and makes the structure much more prevalent.
When are you doing that before you wax?
Yes.
Okay, so the metal brush before you wax.
Yes. And this is in race service they use these, and this is a Roto Brush. And these Roto Brushes really bring out the structure and really get all the old material and stuff out of the base so that you can have a nice clean structure to get the wax into. Okay. So I like to do the metal brush before, and there's brass, there's steel, there's brass. I don't recommend steel because steel is very difficult to use and you have to condition the steel. Like this brush, before it got good, it went over and over and over on 200 grit sandpaper until it got to a point where it was good. So these brass brushes work much better. So before you wax, long strokes, and really open up that structure of the ski.
Do you go through multiple brushes? Or
Yes.
Just,
After you're waxing, there's several brushes that you'll use. I'm going to plug my iron in real quick. We'll let it heat up and then we'll just wax. So in the old days, we used to take our mom's iron, and once you used it, it was ruined. She could never iron with it again. It's bent a little bit, sorry. Those waxes have little steam vents in them, or those irons, and you get wax in there and it gets dirty and burned and it's not good for the ski. So it's best to buy a specific wax iron. And they're pretty inexpensive. I mean, you can get temperature controlled ones that are really expensive, but generally with a plain Swix iron like this, you've got a dial on it where you can turn it up and turn it down. It's probably the best thing, the best thing for our purposes. We'll let it heat up. Generally with waxes are made out of hydrocarbon or paraffin, and there's a lot of companies out there that are doing organic waxes now. The organic waxes really, the organic waxes really have not shown to be as good as hydrocarbon waxes. Still Swix, Toco, and Homenkohl, still the leaders in. Sorry about this. Swix, Toco, and Homenkohl appear to, are the leaders, and that's what's used on the World Cup. There's a lot of other companies doing waxes, and I'm sure they're good. I just think that these are the ones that are being used on World Cup, and they seem to have a lot of success with it. Generally in Colorado, our snow does not change that much as far as temperature, so you can really get by with 3 waxes in Colorado. A CH, if it's Swix, a CH5, a CH7, and a CH8, you can pretty much, go the whole season on. They're generally waxing harder. For our applications, harder waxes work better. They stay on longer, they protect the base longer, and, just a little bit better idea. A lot of the softer waxes, they're great on a warm day, but they come off the ski fast and they do pick up dirt. So we'll pull out. This is CH7. CH7 has got probably the widest range for our type of snow in Colorado. You know, it's good from about -4 Celsius to probably +1 Celsius, which, believe it or not, our snow here stays pretty consistent in temperature. It's not like the East Coast where the snow is really varying a lot in temperature. Our snow, if you measure the snow temperature, it really stays pretty stable. So I like to take my wax and drip it on. Down, so I get a good coat, you know, get a bunch on, and then the ironing process. So what the ironing does is, A, it smooths out the wax, but also you're heating up the molecules, the base, plastic molecules, and the wax is actually going in between those molecules. So, and that's really what gets it fast, it gets the base flat, and that. So you want it liquid, and it's really hard to screw up a ski waxing it. I mean, if you leave the iron on the ski, yeah, you're gonna screw it up. But generally, I actually, when I like to say when the ski goes into reverse camber, you've got enough wax on it. What happens is the ski will actually bow this way. As you heat it up, the materials on the base of the ski are expanding, and so the ski will go into reverse flex. No big deal, it goes right back to normal. That, to me, is the sign that I've gotten enough wax in the base that time. I've gotten the wax hot enough. Different waxes have different temperatures. As long as you're making them liquid, you know, that's what you're doing. With a lot of the fluoros, they are pretty temperature specific. They do make irons with electronic, you know, thermostats on them, but you know, for our purposes, this is good enough. More on there. So you want a good coating on the ski. Tip the tail. And I like to, you know, get it covered on the ski, then go once again, I take my thirds and I go back and forth and, you know, let it liquefy. And you'll see it to the point where it stays liquid for a time after the iron goes across it. And that way you know it's getting into the base. See how it's staying liquid right now? That's what you want to do. Take each third of the ski and do the same. These passes like this. Here.
You ready?
And I go all the way around the tip, only because
Okay.
that's what I do.
All right.
And then let's just go nice and slow down here to finish it. But generally, this ski's starting to bow. See it? Oops. Plug. But usually I iron the ski for 2 minutes or so.
Where are you seeing the bow?
You're going to start to see it bow like this. Dave, do you want to add anything here? Since
No.
okay,
No. I do have to leave, so.
I'm offended.
I know you are.
So does direction matter at all, since you're going back and forth, so it's not a matter
No,
of...
I mean you want to finish it like tip to tail,
Okay.
but generally you can go like this and it doesn't really matter. Where it matters is in the brushing. Yes, that matters. Also, too, is you can feel the heat come through the tip. But generally, when the wax stays liquefied for, say, 30 seconds after you're ironing, then you know you got it hot enough. So now we let it dry. Generally, optimally, you should let it dry all night long. However, that isn't always possible. And also, too, is we used to like to have furnace rooms and leave the ski in a furnace room to be warm, so it dry nice and slow. That wax had, you know, days, but generally you don't always have that option. So there's a lot of times, unfortunately, I'm waxing before I go out skiing in the morning, so I'm literally just letting it dry and then waxing it, you know, scraping it, but that's what we do. Now, I'm gonna go forward a little bit while I'm waiting for the ski to dry. In the summertime, you wanna get your skis, what I always do is I tune my skis up and I think about when I'm gonna use them next, which is in November. So I'll put a nice tune on them, get them nice and sharp, then I will put a storage wax on them, or base prep wax. And Toco and Swix, they all make them. Probably the most popular base prep wax is by Toco or Swix, and it's called BP88. It's a red color. And if you see the red dye here in this? BP88 was designed with a red dye in it so that you could see that it got into the base. And if you look at a lot of the World Cup skis, the Atomics and stuff, you'll always see that sort of red dye that's gotten into the base. And that's because they use a lot of BP88 for base prep and to store the skis. So what I'll do is I'll wax the skis and I'll leave it just like this, then I'll strap them, and that's how I store them for the summer. It keeps the edges from rusting, bases from oxidizing and that.
What does the base prep do?
Base prep is formulated. It's a very soft wax, so it'll get deep into the base to get those paraffin molecules down to the base.
Wouldn't it be better to get the harder stuff as far
The harder stuff's not going to go down. This actually, the softer wax will act as a vehicle for the harder wax.
Oh.
So, softer wax will impregnate more, and then that can draw a harder wax in.
And the harder wax won't get in because
It's got more.
more carbon? Is
Yeah.
what you're saying?
Oh, can I gotta just take this real quick. Hey. Hello? Hey, hey, can I grab them on the way? Okay. Yeah. Okay, thank you. Harder, those waxes have more, present before more carbon molecules, the harder they get. Okay, so they don't get into the base, they don't saturate into the base as easy. So it's the softer waxes that you use for impregnating the base. And that acts as a vehicle to get the harder wax in between the molecules. Does that make sense?
So do the brand new skis need wax? Because
Yes,
someone said,
yes. Yeah, brand new skis. What they do is usually they spray them with the factory. They spray them with a factory wax. It's a liquid wax. Usually it's made by a company called Bevel, and it basically doesn't really help them glide much. It keeps the edges from rusting and the base protect. So generally, yes, a brand new ski does need wax. These are almost as soon as the wax gets hard, as soon as you feel it, it's cool to touch, then it's ready to scrape. And I prefer thicker scrapers. This company called Cold River, they're out of Wisconsin. I think they've got the best scrapers at the best price. And they've got your choice between 4, 5, 6, and 7 millimeters. I like the 5 and 6 millimeter scrapers, even a 7. They're thicker and they stay sharper longer, and you get more leverage, and they don't bow. Okay, so they do make scraper sharpeners as well. Some of them are as simple as a Panzer File like this. There are electric scraper sharpeners as well, and they're very expensive. So you need a sharp scraper. A quick way to do it is you can put it in a vise and do it with your file, but you're not always getting it flat. Or you lay a Panzer File on, and you go like that and sharpen it like that. I'm kind of lazy, so I just buy a ton of scrapers, and when they get dull, I throw them out. Or I take them down to Jeff Braun, the Nordica rep, has an electric scraper sharpener. There's also scraper sharpeners that are something like this that have a blade, but once again, a lot of times they'll skip across the blade and they'll score it. So scraping the ski, it's important to scrape in long strokes, and you want to get all the wax off the ski. Now there's some people here that go out without scraping their skis. Where the hell did you ever learn that?
If the mountain is gonna do it for free, why the hell do I wanna bother with it?
Huh? Well, you're not opening up the structure, you're not getting the pattern there, you don't take advantage of all that. So when you scrape till no more wax comes off the ski. Right? You get all the wax out. There's still wax in the ski, it's just between the layers or between the molecules of Ptex, or the base material. So when I scrape, you can go tip, tail, tail, tip, it doesn't matter. I always like long strokes back and forth. Okay? And like skiing, there is a technique to scrape. And generally this, so you get good long strokes. Go sideways, gotta go a little sideways on the tip because you got that little pool of wax there. But generally, back and forth. So no more wax comes off the ski. Take the tip. And I always finish with one scrape back. So obviously a lot of wax came off the ski, probably because the ski was still warm, but we've got it to the point where we can start to brush it out and structure it. I was telling you about Scotch-Brite, and Scotch-Brite's amazing stuff. And what I use it for is after you wax, it's really good to kind of be the first thing to open the structure up. Just do some nice long strokes down the ski, and you'll see kind of the base start to polish and the structure open up. Just be careful not to round around the edge. And then before you start the structure, pull the ski out of the vise, put it on its side, and get all the wax off the side edge. So
You don't tape your sides?
what's that?
You don't tape them?
You can tape your sides, but I'm lazy. I used to, but I don't have any more tape. Quite frankly, the Toco tape, you probably had rolls of it at home. That was the best stuff. But I just go like this, and then I'll go on the sidewall part and get it. And also, if you've got a scouring pad, the plastic scouring pads? I've got one here someplace. The plastic scouring pads are really good because you can run them down and it takes all the wax off the side too, and it doesn't hurt the edge, like you'd have in the kitchen.
So you don't take off those special take off the edge base of
What's that?
the
Right.
base side of the edge.
Right.
Just the side.
You want to do this? Well, no, I do the edge too.
Oh.
You do the edge, then you do that to the sidewall. You kind of stick it in that little ridge above the edge and get it all out. Then, once we've done that, I start with my brushes again. And this is what I was trying to show you here. One of those is actually really good for doing signage. And then, you'll start with a coarse brush, and I'll use brass. And these are, you don't have to have brushes like this. These are what I've had, but these are nice because, they go in your hand. And you can do nice long strokes. As you start to brush the ski out, that's pulling the wax out of the structure and brings the structure back out. And generally about 5 passes per brush. When you stop seeing dust of the wax come out, then you got it. And then I go to a stiff nylon. Same thing. Long strokes. Then a finer brush. This is a fine nylon, but you can also use horsehair. They make horsehair, they make boar's hair. A lot of these brushes are also anti-static too, so they take the static charge off the ski, which, believe it or not, that can affect how a ski glides. So this is a fine nylon, which is good enough for our purposes. And once again, you start to brush it out. Now with this ski, if this wax had properly dried, once you brush it out, the bases will glisten. They'll be that shiny. Or if you're lazy, you can just and you make sure the drill is going this way, not that way. So that pulls all the wax out of the structure, and then finish it up with this, and then you're ready to go. Excuse me. Now, if you were using fluorocarbons, this would be the point where you put a fluoro on. And a lot of the fluoros are like pastes or cubes of this kind of putty-like material, or there's nano sprays, and you would use a cork. A couple different kinds of cork. There's a felt cork. Here's a cork, and you put that on, and then you cork out the ski. A lot of the times too is if you want to cheat, you can also do this. Okay, if you're in a hurry, you could rub your wax on like this, and then take your cork and cork it out like that. And that's just a quick way to do it. Then you should hit it with a brush to open the structure. So
You think that as opposed to melting it?
it's not as effective, but if you're in a hurry, or say if you're on the hill with a guest, if you don't have a cork, you can take your like base layer, because a lot of the base layer material, you put it over your palm, you can build up enough friction as well. Silk, we used to use silk cloths. That was really good for.
What does that do?
Say if you're with your guest and their skis are not moving and you got to borrow wax with you,
Oh, I see what
you can put the wax on and then you stretch your thing over and you can buff it like that, and that actually builds up enough friction to get it in. I always carry some type of soft, liquid or something to put on skis, like, because if you're skiing and your guest skis are going bad, or it's a warm day, it's always nice to have that and help them out. Because unfortunately, as great as Vail is a ski area, we have these things called catwalks, and sometimes on spring days, if you're coming out of like Bolshoi Ballroom or something, and you get on that catwalk and your skis just go down to nothing, it's nice to have something on them.
You ever use graphite wax when it's really cold?
Yes. And what graphite does, graphite is graphite is a lubricant, and when the wax is really cold or you have new snow, crystals are really angular and coarse, and so that really helps break the crystals and allow reduce the friction. There's also molybdenum. Swigs had molybdenum in their wax. It was called Black Devil, right, Jeff? Is that Black Devil, Swigs' wax with molybdenum? But molybdenum's also like graphite, it's a lubricant and that sort of thing. Also, some people believe too, by using a graphite wax, you kind of recharge the graphite in the base. But that's it. I've made a mess. I hope you guys learned something. Any questions?
How do you know when you need the base coat on the ski?
You'll look at generally, you'll get rock damage. Your base will get a white haze to it. Your structure will be gone. Variety of things. You'll see definitely a lot of abrasion, small abrasion in the base. Anything else, Jeff?
So when I tried to buy a pair of skis online, they recommend me do a
Online? You're buying them online?
Yeah, DPS
Yep.
treatment or something that says if you do that, you will never need the wax.
Everyone I've talked to that's had that done, it does not work for. So there was a couple. Does anyone here remember Zardoz knot wax? Okay, what that is, those are surface coatings, or it's called a surfactant. And what it does is the coating, it seals your base. So you really lose, you can't impregnate anything in your base. And it will make the skis glide fairly well for a period of time. But I just had a guest of mine who were leaving them on the catwalks, and he said, I paid all this money to have that phantom treatment done. That's the DP's treatment. And, I said, you just have to get that all ground off and then go get your skis waxed, because it just doesn't, there's no magic bullet here. It's this or yeah.
What material do you recommend to repair base?
Ptex candle, polyethylene candle. However, you're never going to get it if you're dripping it in. It's dangerous. It's cyanide that comes off those, so you don't want to be breathing that. And the shops have base welders, and the shops have things to put Ptex in. I don't do my own base repair anymore. I'll take it to a shop because their stuff is much better than ours.
Because I noticed that even if I bought a Ptex gun, a fancy one, whatnot, it never really lasts.
No.
Especially when the snow is out, it gets gouged out pretty soon.
So what you're doing is
it's gone.
you're heating up the material,
Right.
and the molecules move far apart, whereas these bases are made with pressure, okay, where they press it together. And so the material you're putting in there is far softer than the material you have in your base. So it does just fall out.
I do notice they sell pieces of sinter base that you would cut off
Yeah.
whatever from the ski and then glue it back
Yeah.
on. Do you recommend doing that?
You know, once again, shops have templates to do it.
Right.
And what you've got to do is you've got to, you know, cut out a template and then use that same template to make, and then you've got to epoxy it in, and then once you do that, you got to have it stone ground so it's flat again. It works. You know, it's very good. You
Have
can
you
do
ever
it.
done it?
Huh?
yourself? Have you ever done it yourself?
I used to, yeah.
You
When I
used
ran all the tune shops here when I was young, working in the thing, we do that all the time. Race skis, you never had to do it because they're never hitting rocks.
How difficult it is to use these?
Huh?
How difficult is it to use these cutouts? Because I've seen it in the catalogs, but I've never really.
You know,
done
if you're good with your hands, it's pretty easy. It's just you got to let the epoxy dry, and you know, don't use 5-minute or quick epoxy. You got to use 24-hour epoxy because that remains flexible, and the quick epoxies aren't as flexible. But yeah, you could do it, and it works well. And there were guys that, you know, we had guys working in the tune shop here that were just masters at it. But I don't know. I have not hit a ski. I've not had a core shot on this mountain. I can't remember the last time I had a core shot. Vale is actually, the stones in Vale, Vale's sandstone. So, whereas you go to a place like Snowbird or something and it's granite, and that rips and tears your base, our rock here is soft, so, you know, it doesn't really rip and tear the base like a basin. But, like I said, you know, this makes all the difference in the world, and you're gonna see once you start tuning your skis and you get into how your skis are tuned, it's gonna improve your own skiing. These things are, you know, skis are pretty amazing things. They do quite a bit. But if they're not tuned, it's not going to happen. Do you guys all know how a ski turns? So, wider in the tip and tail. And what happens is when you roll the ski on edge, it's narrow under the foot, that ski bends into an arc, or into reverse camber, it's called. And that's how a ski turns. That's why it's wider here. What happens is it pulls itself into the turn. That's why this tuning is so important, because that ski has to do that. But it has to do it subtly and that. If you watch some of the pictures of racers, and you see that ski is just curled around their foot, that's how they turn, or they make it. It's an arc. You see those arcs in the snow.
So have you ever shaved the top of the top sheet in the tip and tail to let the ski get deeper into the snow? Have you ever? I've seen people on YouTube on race skis that shave the top sheet.
You could.
To make the edge a little thinner so you get seen.
They used to, Eric Seiler, who was coach at Buck Hill, he was legendary, Lindsey Vaughn's coach. Eric Seiler, we used to get him race skis from Roswell, he'd put them on a belt sander and sand them down to make them softer. Because he'd make the edges, the base and edges thinner, and he said he wanted the ski softer, and that's what he did. Of course, it took away from the life of the ski. But you're also, too, when you're tuning your skis a lot, you're going to see your edge, your base edge will be like the thickness of a dime when you're done. But, you know, it's just the way it is. I say you're going to get to the point, I can't even go out on a ski if it's not tuned. I mean, I actually, psychologically, if I know my skis are bad, I'm going to have a bad day. Jen, do you want to add anything? How about for our guests? What do we recommend for our guests? I mean, wax skis for sure. You know.
You mean in terms of in terms of bevel?
Well, they're the same as you know.
Well, is that unfortunately, if they're on rental skis, their rental skis are atrocious. They're just not getting the attention that they need. If they're on their own personal skis,
They probably haven't been tuned.
it's hard to tell them that they need to have their skis, touched up every time or every couple of times. Depending on the snow, right? So,
Yeah.
maybe every 5 days, every 10 days.
Yeah, 5 days,
But they're probably going to have to take them in someplace.
Right.
But ideally, they're taking them in someplace where they're hand tuning them and not running them over a machine every time, or the ski is going to be, you're going to use up all their edge in the season. And I recommend a 1-1
Yeah.
with and I always recommend a fine the structure, just because our
Yeah.
snow is so dry for the most part.
And what happens too is if some of the shops do too aggressive a structure, the ski won't turn.
Oh my God. it's
And
amazing.
it actually, the ski will make a humming sound
Yeah.
when you're going down the hill because it's so, the structure is so deep. I'm old here, and we used to have grooves down the middle of our skis. You guys remember grooves down the middle of skis? What that was really to allow the ski to track straight, but also to break suction. And the structure kind of replaced that in a way. But if you put too aggressive a structure, the ski is not going to turn. It's going to feel really funny.
What would let's say, a decent kit put together cost?
$200. You know, once again, you've got a pretty good program on Expert Voice.
Do they have already like sort of a kit set
No,
up? Or you have
but,
to order things individually?
I'll email Jen, and I can put together kind of the basic things that you would need. Yeah, you know, and also too is like when you're skiing, maybe carrying a 600 or 400 grit diamond stone, just if your guests are having any problems ever, it's always a good thing to have in your pocket. There we go. There we go. And I always carry a little piece of Scotch-Brite too with me.
Why?
So, if their skis are too sharp on the tip and tail.
Do you ever use emery
Um,
too aggressive?
We used to, but the Scotch-Brite still leaves it. It doesn't round it so much. It takes the harshness out of it. You can use emery too. And you know, we used to take emery cloth, and you probably remember this, wrap it around the file, and that's how you used to actually structure your base before base, you know, for the different grits of the other thing that's good to have, you know, the sanding screens.
Yes.
Those are good, like when you get digs in the side of your edges and that, the sanding screen is really good to kind of take, you know, any sidewall dings or
You mean
top
the
edge
belt
dings.
sheet?
Huh?
Pulp sheet?
Yeah.
Oh, is
Yeah.
that it?
Yeah. So, that's it. Any questions?
I think you got a lot of questions here.
Huh?
Everybody wants to go for a drink now.